Hello everybody, Vic here with another video. Today we're talking all things Jason Lives, Friday the 13th Part 6 from 1986. My favorite movie in the Friday the 13th franchise by far. Watched it the first time when I was about 14 years old, fell in love with it. Watch it pretty much probably once a year. At least every Friday the 13th, I watch probably Final Chapter, Jason Lives. Maybe sometimes I fit in Part 3, sometimes I fit in Jason Takes Manhattan, but for the most part, I'm a Part 6 guy. So I wanted today to kind of get into a full-blown exploring the movie, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, what could be improved, but mostly why I have such a great affinity for Jason Lives. Let's get into some background for the movie first thing. We have to go back to Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. The Roy Burns special, if you remember, 1985, Friday the 13th Part 5. Victor kills Joey with the axe, knife in the back. This spurns Roy Burns, the paramedic, to get revenge on everybody in the damn town, everybody who was not responsible for his son Joey's death. Of course, Victor was responsible, but meets no repercussions because the paramedic Roy Burns is going to kill everybody except Victor, making it one of the stupidest cases of revenge of all time. Now, that said, I understand that in recent years, Friday the 13th Part 5 has begun to become more popular, get a reappraisal, get reassessed as maybe a quality sequel that a lot of people dig. I get that completely. I'm personally not on that bandwagon, but I understand that a lot of people like the movie. I'm still very iffy on it, and back when it first came out, the audience was pretty iffy on it. The movie did not do well at the box office. Of course, with all the Friday films, they pretty much make back their budget from opening weekend. So these are low-budget films, cash cow for Paramount. They had to keep making them, even though it seems like they weren't super proud of them. There was too much money involved in the franchise to ignore, so they had to keep pumping out sequels. And for Part 6, after Part 5, Frank Mancuso Jr. decided, hey, it's time to bring back Jason. We did the whole experimentation of taking Jason out, trying something else. It didn't quite work in his opinion, so the idea was to bring back Jason. Well, listen, we saw this in the Halloween franchise. Of course, Halloween 3, which is actually a really solid movie, really good movie. But box office-wise, supposedly didn't work, so they had to bring back Michael Myers in Halloween 4. Kind of similar here, bring back Jason, somehow resurrect him, and of course they hired Thom McLoughlin, writer-director who I have interviewed previously on the channel. If you want to check out that interview, it's back in the archives. He came on board to write and direct Jason Lives, and listen, he was the right guy for the job because the franchise needed something different, needed something new, and what Thom McLoughlin brought was a sense of humor to Jason Lives. What stands out about Jason Lives, first and foremost, is that the movie has a great mix of comedy and horror. Listen, back in the 80s, yes, there were sometimes horror comedies. Return of the Living Dead's a great example of getting that perfect mix right between comedy and horror. But most movies, I would say, tend to play it straight. It was hard to actually be self-aware in the 80s because you were kind of in the midst of things. But here in Jason Lives, we get some amazing early self-referential things here. The woman in the car talking about, hey, well, actually it's Thom McLaughlin's wife, saying that, hey, I've seen enough horror movies to know that any guy in a mask is trouble. So, that's like great self-referential stuff. Obviously in the 90s, it would be a long time before we got to Scream in 1996, 10 years later, where self-referential horror became all the rage. But back in the 80s, it wasn't such a big thing. So it's kind of amazing to see it here in Jason Lives. So what's going on with Jason and Jason Lives? Well, we pick up with Tommy driving to a cemetery with his friend Hawes. And I asked Thom McLoughlin, was this the Tommy from Part 5 or is it just the Tommy from Part 4? And he feels like it could be played either way. It depends on just it was kind of done with both things in mind. And because if you think about Part 5, it is said in Part 5 that Jason's body was cremated. But that was just one character saying it in Part 5. It's not like it was officially confirmed on paper that he was cremated, so he could have been buried. The character in Part 5 could have just been mistaken. But if that's the case, if he was cremated, it doesn't make sense that here he's buried. At the same time, there's nothing wrong with just saying, hey, this is just Tommy from Part 4. He happened to also be institutionalized, and now he's back. Part 4 is such a good movie, and Part 5 at the time, I feel like they wanted to get away from that. So it also makes sense just to say, hey, for the people that didn't see Part 5, this is still Tommy Jarvis from Part 4. So either way you want to do it is fine. it's such a different character from part five. I tend to go with the idea that this is really Tommy Jarvis from part four and that they're ignoring the events of part five. But it's a choose your own scare adventure. It's completely up to you. Now, Tommy Jarvis in this movie, of course, is played by the great Thom Mathews, who the year prior had starred in Return of the Living Dead. I spoke to him recently and just asked him, talked to him about getting the role and kind of some overall thoughts he had about Jason Lives. So let's check that out.
I did. I had seen the first one, and then I got cast, and then I went and watched 1 through 5, and paying particular attention to Tommy Jarvis, of course, because I wanted to see if there was any physical mannerisms that either John or Corey did that I could bring into my character. There wasn't anything that really stood out that they both did. So, but I did go back and do my research for sure. And it's probably at the time, I was considered Freddy from Return of the Living Dead a character.
Yeah.
For me, but Tommy Jarvis was probably at the time the closest character to myself that I had done at the time. So I just kind of played it to the script, and it was really easy to work with Tom McLaughlin, and really, the set was great, and everyone was pretty much great. We shot that in Georgia, Covington, Georgia.
And also, what was Tom's reaction to Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning? Let's check it out.
John did a great job, by the way. His performance is great. It's just I don't know, the direction, I guess, or the movie wasn't well received. I saw it and I was terrified to do part 6, actually, after I saw part 5. I was like, what the hell have I gotten myself into? Because it wasn't something, that elk I wanted to be a part of. But
now, what's Tommy doing here coming to the cemetery? Well, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't quite understand. Tommy's wanting to make sure that Jason is dead by digging up his body and making sure that he's dead. Tommy, he's buried. He's there. I mean, if he was out and about killing people, you would have heard about it. So you having to make sure that he's alive by digging him up. Come on, man. You got to have something in Tommy's gut instinct has to be saying this is going to not end well for the people in this town. And of course, what happens? You dig up Jason, and a damn bolt of lightning comes down, strikes Jason's grave, and now Jason's resurrected like freaking Frankenstein, coming out the grave. Tommy, you really messed up here. Now, what stands out about the opening scene is a couple things. First of all, the imagery here is amazing. You start out with some great shots of the moon, the woods. This cemetery looks great. You can tell already that the movie's in the hands of an amazing professional. Tom McLaughlin just makes the movie look great. Like, I can't wait for this movie to come out in 4K because it looks amazing. What else stands out is that you have Tommy Jarvis reintroduced as a new character, a little bit more extroverted, more talkative. Remember, he was kind of muted in part 5, which is another reason why I think it's probably not him from part 5. And the character of Hawes. Hawes is an amazing friend. He's tagging along with Tommy to help him to ease his nerves about Jason being dead. Hawes has a great arc here in the opening scene because he's like the super scared best friend. He's just like complaining. He doesn't want to be there. He's super scared. Everything Tommy does is freaking Hawes out. But when Jason comes back to life, when shit hits the fan, it is Hawes who makes the first aggressive move, hitting Jason in the back of the head with a shovel. The coward becomes the hero. Well, almost, because Jason turns around and punches Hawes' damn heart right out of his damn chest. Hawes goes flying to the grave. Hopefully his body will be found someday, but we don't know. I mean, hopefully there'll be justice for Hawes. But just proving once again that being a good friend in horror movies never pays off. You think about Rudy and Halloween Resurrection, being a good friend to Sarah, what happens? Michael Myers stabs him against the wall. Many, many cases where being a good friend does not pay off, and that's the case here with Hawes. But we get an amazing opening sequence here, and the best thing about this movie, beyond the comedy and the horror combination, is that the pace is so fast-paced. They don't waste any time. You don't get a slow start here. Right after this opening scene, we jump right into the action. It's full speed ahead, full momentum. The next 90 minutes cruises by, action-packed. Jason back from the dead. Now, amongst Friday the 13th fans, it can be said there is a general opinion that maybe Tommy Jarvis is responsible for all the deaths in the franchise after this movie, since, as we know, Jason was chilling in his grave, dead as can be, and Tommy started the chain of events that brought Jason back to life. So I did ask Thom Mathews how he felt about this. I asked him Is Tommy Jarvis responsible for all the future deaths in the franchise? Here's what he had to say.
I did put him back down though
You
You
did.
did.
in the water. You
That's
know
That's
fair.
fair.
that issue has come up a couple of times, and I see I see Kane, a few times a year, and I told him he owes me some money because he didn't have a career. It wasn't for me.
Let's talk about Jason to begin with here, because I think in the first couple scenes of Jason, he actually doesn't quite know what he is. This is, of course, the introduction of zombie Jason. And I get a sense that Jason really doesn't know what the hell is going on when he first comes out the grave. That's why when he first comes out the grave, he kind of stares at Tommy for a minute or two. I think his brain is processing, like, where am I? What is this? Because Jason in the first few movies was a little bit obviously more animated, a little bit more human-like. He would run, he would make noises, a lot of more human elements to Jason from the first few movies. Zombie Jason here doesn't talk, moves very slow like a zombie. So it's kind of like I think he's processing what's going on. He doesn't realize he's zombie Jason. Another examples of this when he kills the paintballer by ripping off his arm. He kind of looks at the arm, and I'm kind of thinking Jason's thinking like, whoa, like he doesn't know his strength. Like, whoa, I'm that strong? Like, holy shit. Like, I think Jason's coming to his own in the first half of Jason Lives, just figuring out what he can get away with, what his new powers entails, what being zombie Jason's all about. So I think that's an interesting thing. I don't know if it was intentional, but I feel like it's kind of there in the character of Jason. Jason looks great. The makeup is fantastic, of course. Many of you maybe heard that originally the movie started off with a different Jason who is in the paintball scene. They filmed the paintball scene with the original Jason, but like, I don't know. I mean, this is just what they say. This is not me saying it's what they say. They say that during the filming of Jason Lives, the dude gained too much weight. I don't know. There was a Waffle House across the street from where they were filming, but apparently between when they hired him and when they were filming, he had gained like 40, 50 pounds. And somebody was watching the dailies and just felt like Jason was a little bit too big in the bad way, and they had to replace him with CJ Graham. Now, CJ Graham, who I met in a con last year, was one of the most amazing celebrities slash horror people to meet, because he took a lot of time with every person and really was personable and had a great conversation with them. But CJ Graham steps in then to film the rest of the movie as Jason and does an amazing job. I'm just going to put it out there right now. CJ Graham is my favorite Jason. I know that Kane Hodder has done it longer, but I can't say there's any version of Kane Hodder's Jason that I like better than Part 6 Jason. So big props to CJ Graham. But, I mean, we have Tommy, we have Jason, but what stands out also is the movie has great supporting characters. A lot of times with the Friday movies, you get mediocre supporting characters. You get characters you don't care about. When they get killed, you're happy to see them die. You're like, man, not only do I not, empathize with a character, not only do I not feel bad for them dying, but I actually kind of cheering for Jason. This is not really a movie where you cheer for Jason. You actually do like the characters. Even this opening couple, when they're driving down a dark road, of course, in the woods, and they run into Jason. Jason kills the guy, throws him to damn planet Mars, and then kills the girl. And you get this other comedic moment where she offers the American Express card, which is actually a very human reaction. That's probably what a lot of people would do in that moment, is offer the American Express card. Whatever you could do, bribe Jason, whatever you could throw at him to get him to not kill you, but a very comedic moment there. But even you like those characters. The paintballers, I mean, likable enough, but our core supporting characters, I would say, are Paula, Court, and Megan. Now, Megan is not your typical female lead from the 80s, because she is very gung-ho she's very adventurous. She's not like sort of calm, demure, like typical final girlish, where they slowly come out of their shell and by the end of the movie, they're taking on the bad guy. Megan knows what she wants. She's a very fun girl. She reminds me of Tina from Halloween 5, but maybe a more likable version of Tina from Part 5, even though I do like Tina from Halloween 5. But she's kind of like that, kind of more bubbly, more energetic, seems more like a party girl. And it's kind of refreshing to see that here. She's a take charge girl, and she has good chemistry with Thom Mathews. And I think that of all the final girls in the franchise, I think she stands in my top 3 for sure. She's right up there with Trish from Part 4, and those probably are actually my top 2, to be honest. And we also have the character of Paula, who's very interesting to me because she has more of a final girl feel. She is more, as I spoke about when Megan's not, Paula is more sort of quiet, Much more of a typical sort of nice girl, I would say. She's very nice with the kids. She seems like she's someone of good values, just wants to come to the lake, do her job. With Paula, you kind of feel like, well, maybe she'll actually live. Like you get a sense that maybe she'll survive because she's such a solid supporting character. But then she gets one of the more epic unseen death scenes because Jason comes in the cabin, you have a cutaway shot, and then I don't know what the hell Jason does to this girl, but freaking blood is like he purifies or something like that because Jason throws her against the window, and then you see all this damn blood in the cabin. And the aftermath of that death scene, the amount of blood and stuff is just holy hell. Crazy death scene for Paula, who again seems like she could have been easily a final girl in a Friday 13th movie. And we also have Court, who's played by John Travolta's nephew in that classic RV scene. RV flips over, Jason's standing on top of it, iconic as hell. Seems like a damn action movie. So we have great supporting characters here in Jason Lives, and probably the one that I haven't talked about that is maybe has become my favorite supporting character in the entire franchise is Sheriff Garris. Now, as a teen first watching the movie, Sheriff Garris was a very unlikable character to me because he doesn't believe Tommy when Tommy tells him that Jason is out there and Jason's coming and all this stuff. Sheriff Garris immediately disbelieves Tommy. In fact, he wants to just throw him in the damn cell and then actually escort him out of town. We get this fun scene where Sheriff Garris is trying to escort Tommy out of town, but Tommy is going to make a beeline to the cemetery. I asked Thom Mathews about this scene also, and here were his thoughts on that.
That was a historic cemetery. So, you know, when you're running from the cops, herd, you run in a straight line. You don't go zigzagging around, right?
That was one scene that made my head hurt a bit. I was like,
I had to zigzag because I couldn't step on the graves.
oh.
And they also, which was cool about that cemetery, they had a bunch of unknown soldiers from the Civil War buried there. So that was really fascinating to me because, you know, I'm born and bred on the West Coast, so anything like that on the East Coast was very cool.
Now, Sheriff Garris is also the father of Megan, who takes a sort of romantic interest in Tommy, and that creates a sort of push and pull between Sheriff Garris and Tommy Jarvis throughout the movie that I think sort of defines the movie because Tommy throughout the movie is telling Sheriff, warning about Jason. Sheriff Garris does not believe Tommy, and it goes all the way until basically Sheriff Garris himself has to confront Jason. And I like their dynamic because, again, I was on Tommy and Megan's side as a teen, but watching as an adult, you kind of get the sense of Sheriff Garris is actually a good father. He's just being a good father and maybe even being a good sheriff in terms of protecting the town. From his perspective, maybe Tommy is just crazy. I mean, he's from, you know, he was just institutionalized, so maybe Tommy is crazy and is here making up things. Maybe Tommy is doing the killings himself. So there's a lot of things going on in Sheriff Garris's mind that can explain his behavior here. And not to say I fully side with him, but I empathize with his character a lot. And then you get to his death scene, which really is him all out taking on Jason with giving everything he can to Jason for the purpose of trying to sacrifice himself to save his daughter, give his daughter more time, stop Jason from going after his daughter. He's given Jason absolute hell here, but it's still zombie Jason, and unfortunately Sheriff Garris is not a big man, so Jason, of course, crumbles Sheriff Garris, folds him in half like a damn folding chair. I actually asked Thom Mathews about this scene also. Let's get his thoughts there.
That was a great death. That's my
great
favorite death in the whole franchise.
amazing.
I was there, and what's in the movie you don't even get to see.
Oh.
You only see a quarter of it. I saw the dailies the next day after they shot it. No music, no sound effects of the spine breaking, and it was unbelievable. What we see in the movie is like the last 3/4 of it.
Yeah.
I saw the whole thing when he picks him up and bends him over backwards. And I've always asked Tom, the director, if there's ever going to be a director's cut, because that should be in it.
4K.
It was, and it was a really simple gag. They just dug a hole.
Yeah.
Sheriff Garris stood in the hole and bent forward. The stunt guy had his torso in the hole, and his legs were out, so it looked like the sheriff was laying flat. And sheriff just bent over backwards And then they had, and what really sold it was the guy in the hole, the stunt guy kicking his legs up when his spine cracked.
Oh,
It was
this
so, it
the
was so
sound
simple.
effect. I
Yeah,
get like a back spasm watching it.
it was
um,
such it's the practical effects, man. It was just amazing.
and hey, I agree with Thom Mathews. It's an amazing death scene, one of the best in the franchise. That said, I would have loved to seen Sheriff Garris survive this movie. I would have loved to see him there at the end on team Tommy and Megan. And the reason is because the way the plot was set up, the way they had that push and pull between Sheriff Garris and Tommy, what would have paid off the movie best at the very end was an "I told you" moment with Tommy looking at Sheriff Garris and basically saying, "Do you believe me now?" Like, and Sheriff Garris acknowledging, like, "Hey kid, I'm sorry, I didn't believe you, but you were right. Jason was out here." Them having a moment at the end would have been just an amazing payoff because they never get that moment. But the clash of the movie character wise is between Sheriff Garris and Tommy. And it just never, it doesn't tie back together at the end because Sheriff Garris is dead. So I would love to see Sheriff Garris die. Still keep that death scene, but just keep it for somebody else. And just, have that payoff in a way that you get that sort of "I told you so" from Tommy. All that said, great characters all around. Even the very minor characters. You got the kids in the cabin talking about what were you going to be when you grew up? It's again a great line. Um, you have a great scene with Jason looking at the kids and basically almost making it seem like he doesn't kill kids, although Tom McLaughlin does say that it can be played different ways, but he has a script he wrote for a new Friday the 13th movie that I guess goes more into detail about what actually is that. Does Jason kill kids or is he in awe of them? What's going on there? So there's a lot of good stuff in this movie, and we get to the ending, and the ending also is fantastic. Tommy's going to lure Jason into the water with the idea that the way to get rid of Jason is to return him to his original resting place, which I guess this series is all over the place in terms of, did Jason drown? Did he not drown? Is he a ghost? Was he actually just a woodsman alive in the woods building a shack? But from Tommy's perspective, the idea here is to get Jason down to the bottom of the water, and he's going to do that by attaching a big ass rock on a boat, have Jason crash the boat down, and luckily for Tommy, Jason goes down the bottom of the water tied to a rock that's going to keep him there. And then, of course, Megan also saves the day by basically taking a boat propeller to Jason's face. It's a great ending, a very good ending. It puts the franchise back where it needs to be because Jason's alive. You have a great Tommy Jarvis 3 movie arc. And it also leaves great room for a sequel because Jason's still at the bottom of the lake. Now, story wise, the ending does leave some questions because you're thinking, okay, how did Tommy and Megan explain this? I mean, there's dead bodies all over the camp. What did they tell the authorities? Because are the authorities just going to assume that maybe Tommy was the killer? You have Megan there saying no, it wasn't Tommy. But are they telling the authorities about Jason? It seems like the way Tommy told Sheriff about Jason, Sheriff Garris, that he's had no problem if authorities show up, if the FBI shows up, he's going to point them to Jason being at the bottom of the water and say, hey, Jason did it. But if that happened, wouldn't the authorities then have taken Jason out of the water and removed him? But as we know in part 7, Jason is still there. So it seems like either the authorities never got involved or didn't believe Tommy, or they never checked in the water to see if Jason was there. So there's a big mystery there about what happened in the events after that. You almost have to go with the idea that Tommy and Megan made up something about Jason doing the killings, but then didn't tell them that Jason was at the bottom of the water. Maybe Tommy's saying, hey, Jason killed them, Megan backs it up, and then Jason just left and went somewhere because maybe Tommy's thinking that Jason at the bottom of the water is safer than them taking Jason out of the water, bringing him back in the world, then he's no longer in his original resting place, and they'll start killing everybody. So maybe Tommy's protecting the world, in his opinion, by leaving Jason at the bottom of the water. But it'd been nice to see some aftermath of how that's explained. And also, I mean, listen, you get to part 7, you're like, hey, why not bring back Tommy Jarvis again? Because if you're going to continue events at Camp Crystal Lake, it feels like maybe Tommy could still be hanging around, just making sure in the town that nothing comes about Jason coming back, making sure that Jason stays at the bottom of the water. It would have been nice to see Tommy Jarvis back in part 7. And I asked Thom Mathews, like, if that was ever a thing, and this is what he said.
That was the original idea. I mean, I was approached to it about doing that, and then I'm not sure what happened. I am in part. I mean, they show clips of us, flashbacks and stuff in part 7. Can't figure it out. I can't understand the thinking of the executives behind. You know, part of the problem was the horror genre at the time was kind of frowned upon. It's like doing a soap opera as an actor, doing a horror movie as an actor.
Yeah.
Actor. Paramount had the franchise, and it made them money, so they couldn't ignore it. It's like, the redheaded stepchild just keeps making noise and keeps making, so they kept making them for financial gain. But as far as the consistency, they didn't have anyone overseeing what the fans would want or making any sense of it.
So the Paramount films don't have the best continuity in the series. There's a little bit there. There's enough to watch the first 8 movies in a row and kind of get a consistent feel of what's going on. And, the next 3 movies, or the next 2 movies, part 7 and part 8, do have Jason back in the water. So it does pick up kind of after the events of part 7, although part 7 skips way ahead in the timeline into unrealistic stuff like maybe it being the year 2000 by the events of part 7 based on the timeline. But yeah, but they weren't thinking like how things are now. Nowadays, I feel like when someone does a series, there's a lot more attention given to the continuity. They really try to make it sense for fans because they know fans will nitpick these things. But that just wasn't the mindset back in the 80s with Frank Mancuso Jr. He was like, hey, let's pop out the next one, new director, new writer, keep the budget low, bring Jason back, big body count. Let's film in Vancouver, even though we're advertising Manhattan, Jason on a boat, whatever the case might be. It just wasn't a whole lot of detail given to the continuity, the canon, those things. And Tommy Jarvis not being in part 7 was kind of lost to that ideology. But Thom Mathews does feel that there is a sequel to Jason Lives, and if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. Let's talk about Never Hike Alone 2, the Never Hike Alone series. Thom Mathews gave some thoughts on that.
So I consider Never Like Alone 2 probably the sequel to Jason Lives.
Yeah.
30 years later, 40 years later, whatever. Oh, I did the fan films because I was hoping Tom was holding out to do the 13th one. And then he finally told me that he had a script and Tommy Jarvis was not in it. So then I said, well, might as well do the fan film. And as you know, they were really well made and the stories are great. And Vincent DeSante, the creator of Womp Stomp Films and the director and writer, both of them it's a huge fan of Jason Lives in particular. And I got involved after they had already shot the first Never Hike Alone. So I come in at the end, and what sold me on it and why I got involved in it was the production value and the story. It was very topical, very current, and the kid was great at it. Andrew was great in it. And for those of you who don't know, he was a blogger and he rates hiking trails, and he's got a GoPro, so he's got all those cool shots, and he comes across a trail that's not on the map, and he gets curious and follows it, and it kind of goes on from there. But the production value is amazing, and
if you don't know it's a fan film, there's nothing on screen
exactly
that suggests that.
And then I got Rick the Dick of Iniguastafaro to come back as well because he's still a friend of mine. So we all did Never Hike in the Snow, and then he also did Never Hike Alone too.
In the last one, his last scene with Jason is my favorite scene.
Epic, right?
That is
right.
That deserved to be in theater.
Yeah, it was epic.
For a second,
I don't want to spoil it
for a second. I think
yeah.
he just told Jason.
It's the first time he sees Jason ever.
Yeah.
He's never seen Jason before. He's always thought Tommy Jarvis was killing everybody. We couldn't prove it. It's very frustrating. He finally sees him and goes, "Oh, look, he's alive. He's real."
Yeah. He believes the power of Yabang.
And he has an idea. He has an idea how to kill Jason.
He gets
Never Hike Alone too.
All that said, I think many of you share my belief that Jason Lives is the best movie in the Friday the 13th franchise. Usually on most lists, it comes either first or second, right there with Final Chapter Part 4. I have it number 1. I'm not mad if you have Final Chapter Part 1. I think those two stand out head and above the rest of the movies in the franchise. Let me know in the comments your thoughts about Jason Lives. Where do you rank in the franchise? Is it the best for you? If you haven't seen it, go out and check it out. August 1st is actually the 39-year anniversary. And I just feel like it's one of the better slashers of the 80s. Gets the humor right, gets the tone right. Jason himself is fantastic. You have great supporting characters, and it's a really fast paced 90 minutes. Until next time, you guys take care.